Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Webtoon Book Club. Today's episode is Her Bucket List. This is another pretty good story that I will highly recommend. But first, here's the story. So our story starts with our main character getting some pretty bad news, which is that her boyfriend apparently died in a horrible accident. And the boyfriend's mother is screaming, yelling, and blaming her for everything because the mother never cared for her, ever. And we find that the mother is actually a pretty controlling person. But for our main character, she is absolutely devastated by this. And she decides that she wants to be with him. You can figure out the implications of that. But before she does that, she remembers that they made a bucket list together. So she decides that before she goes, she's going to do everything that they wrote down in the bucket list. And then once that list is done, she's going to do what she needs to do. Really gotta skate around that one. I hate it. Anyway. Meanwhile, we have our second main character. A guy who is a really good guitar player and singer. But the problem is he has horrible stage fright. And he needs to try and get over his stage fright so he can, I guess, do some type of rehearsal or test or something of some kind. I can't remember what the entire circumstances is, but it's like I think he's trying to get into a college or he's trying to something. But basically, he needs to get over his stage fright so he can perform in front of the judges. So, his friend suggests that he tries just going out into public and then just playing and singing there. The problem is, he gets all locked up, even in that situation. And it's not like he can't perform or sing, because apparently he has a moderately successful, we'll just say YouTube channel, because that's what it is, and people really like him. But of course the issue is he just can't perform in public, in front of others. So while him and his buddy are out, they end up coming across the girl. And the friend suggests, well, why don't you just get one person, like her or something? Or no. I'm fumbling the details, but doesn't matter. Anyway, the main character goes up to the girl and asks her if she could sit in on his practicing so he can try and get over his stage fright. And she tells him, well, you have to do the things on this list with me, and I'll do what you want me for. So he agrees to it, and they just start going out and doing the things on the list, which is all sorts of varying, multiple different things. Whether it's watching movies, going to different places, eating certain foods, whatever. Just a whole bunch of different stuff. And they do get far closer to each other as the story goes on. As you can pretty much see where this is going. Meanwhile, with the best friend cutting in with him occasionally, is he's trying to help his buddy out, and it's just not really going the greatest. And then another girl comes by who is a big fan of the guy in his YouTube channel and ends up hanging out. So the four of them end up hanging out a lot more. Especially considering the friend kind of finds this other girl attractive. So they start. So eventually they slowly start becoming a thing. While our main character girl, the more she hangs out with the guy, the more she kind of realizes he's a far better person than her old boyfriend. For in one instance, I think she ends up going out and getting, I think, pretty drunk. And our main character guy ends up taking her back to apartment, which I've left out this detail. At first, she's just like, when they're first meeting, she agrees to it, and then she just goes back to her place. But he's following her, and she's wondering why. And he's saying, I'm not following you, I'm going back home myself. And it turns out that they live right next door to each other. Literally, their apartments are right next to each other. How about that? But even though he lives right next door, but when she gets drunk and he has to take her home, he never leaves her side. Ever. Even though he lives right next door, he never leaves her side and actually prepares a breakfast in the morning for when she wakes up. And when she sees how dedicated he was to actually not letting her alone, just to make sure that she was okay, it brings her back a memory where she was sick one time. She was mildly sick one time, and her boyfriend just kind of grabbed all of his things and left. Because he didn't want to get sick, so he just left her to kind of be ill on her own. And there seems to be a lot of stuff like that, where they seem to be a fine couple, but he seemed to not really be the best person. He was a bit selfish. But it is what it is, I guess. So as the story goes on, obviously the the best friend and the random girl start to get together, and our main characters start to get closer with each other. And then they eventually decide during the winter that they want to go on vacation. So they decide to go south to the city of Busan. I think it is. I think it's Busan. Yeah. So they decide to go there. And they get there and they start to just like tour around the city, see the sights, explore places that they want to go. But when they decide to take a little bit of a break, they end up stepping inside this coffee shop. And there, at the counter, is the old boyfriend, who's not dead. He's actually perfectly fine. And the background of what happened there was pretty much he wanted to start up his own coffee shop, but he needed the money, but he needed to borrow the money from his mother. And his mother basically wouldn't give him it as long as he was dating our main character. So the mother came up with a plan that to make it so he doesn't really have to break up with her, but he can get what he wants while also not being with her anymore. And so she doesn't go looking after him. Which was to tell her he died and he just moves away. It's this big whole thing. And he gladly goes along with it. No issues. And she is obviously completely devastated by this. So our main character has to go and comfort her, especially considering he fears what she might do, considering they eventually open up to each other to the point where he finds out why she has this list of things that she wants to do, and what her plan was when she finished it. But by that point, she kind of questioned whether or not to do it by that point. And when he comes across her again, she's basically taking the situation pretty well by essentially taking all the things that was his in her apartment and and destroying them. And she's just like, well, screw that guy. You're the only one I need. Pretty much. Now, what I have not said was the guy's background, which actually, which kind of explains a bit of his stage fright. To an end, he wasn't really always comfortable performing in front of everybody, but he didn't have stage fright like he did at the beginning of the story. What happened was his sister was apparently really sick with something and needed to go in to the hospital for a surgery. And the surgery was supposed to be like something minor, where it was just like, it gets done, it gets fixed, and she'll be fine. But something went wrong. Apparently, she ended up becoming a rare occurrence where the anesthesia ended up where I think, yeah, the anesthesia ended up actually killing her, which is actually a real thing that can happen. It's a very, very rare chance that something like this can happen, and even at a lot of the times when something like this can go wrong, there are ways to counter it. But there is still a very slim chance that people going under anesthesia could die from it. It's an extremely rare chance. It's like one of those like 1 in a million or 1 in 10 million odds. So it's extremely low, but it can happen. So she ended up dying from that. And before she went into her surgery, I forget if it was like some type of deal or whatever they made, but she said, you need to play for me on my birthday. And the problem is she ended up dying on her birthday. So during the whatever they call it, whatever, I don't know what the term in the Korean is. I guess during the wake or the funeral itself, I don't know. it's I'm not sure how that entirely works in Korea, but I'll just go with the terms I know. I guess during the wake, he ended up walking in with his guitar and started playing and singing. The father didn't know why he was doing this and got extremely upset and ended up pushing him away and basically yelling at him. This whole story, he has this massive like rift between him and his father over this exact situation. And he's a little bit afraid to kind of admit to his father what he really wants to do with his life because he's afraid that his father just won't accept it. Especially considering how he already got treated during that little incident, which in my mind could have been easily settled with like communication, but whatever. But he has a little bit of stage fright because of basically being shut out when he got brave enough to actually try. But be but by the time we get towards the more end of the story, we end up finding out that the father has that he starts to play more and more into public space, especially considering he finds that when this girl is there, he's able to focus pretty much only on her, which is that was it. That's how this whole situation went down, was because he found that when she was there, his focus was pretty much only on her. So he was perfectly fine performing in front of large crowds as long as he saw her there. Because because to him, nobody else was there but her. It's such an important detail that I forgot. Whoops. But with the father, we do find out that he has been actually watching his son perform in public, but he's far off in the background and usually covered up so you can't recognize him. But he has been regularly watching over him, and he's actually not disappointed by him. Now the reason why why our character might have been a little bit more nervous with his father is because his father, I believe, runs like an opera or a theater. And so being like successful with the arts is kind of a big deal. And he's doing something that's kind of on the lower end standard of that. So it's just kind of like, why are you doing this? This is not what I would want you to do. Or at least that's kind of probably what it probably started out with his father saying that, and he kind of kept that he kind of kept that in mind over the years, but his father, seeing how happy he is with what he is, he kind of accepts it a little bit more. But towards the end of the series, basically, our main character girl just basically is done with her old boyfriend, and our two characters get together more officially. And when it comes down to him needing to do his rehearsal, I will say, he does it well, and he gets what he wants in that regard. And pretty much that's where the story pretty much ends, with everybody kind of being happy where they're at. And most of everybody getting what they want. So that was her bucket list. A story that I miraculously had a hard time remembering in detail, which would have been nice. Whatever. But it is a really good story, and I do recommend it. The art is really good. Like, it is really good. The story is very well put together. It is very well paced. And it's a pretty medium length story. So it could probably take it will probably take some time to read through it. But with that, that's really all I got. So, vote for which story you would like me to talk about next in the description below, and I will see you next time.